All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining Miami New Drama's Masterclass series. And so we're venturing out into a little bit of a different thing today. We're not focusing so much on writing, acting, dancing. We're focusing on marketing, specifically branding and storytelling. And we have special guests here today, Nick Skally and Ian Torres from that marketing agency that we've been working with this past season. And so they have a short presentation for you all to share or to share with you all. And at the end, we will leave a little time for questions. And you can type in your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or in the chat, and I'll be here to guide and ask them once we get to that point. So I'm going to hand it over to Nick and Ian. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jessica. We really appreciate it, and we're excited to be here today. So my name is Ian Torres. I'm the president of that marketing agency. And just to tell you a little bit about us, we are a digital marketing and branding agency based here in Miami. And we've had the pleasure of working with Miami New Drama during their past season, helping them with their brand strategy and marketing. And we're honored to be here today to speak to you all to talk a little bit about branding and storytelling. My colleague, Nick Scally, I'll actually let you introduce yourself real quick.
Yes, hi, Nick Skally. I work on brand strategy, marketing plan development, copywriting. But yeah, work with all the great brands like Miami New Drama, and excited to be here to share some of our thoughts on storytelling and how it relates to branding.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, let's kick it off.
Okay. I'll take over here. How are we doing? Does that look good, Ian?
Looks good.
All right. So yeah, there's basically two parts of our presentation today. The first part, we're going to talk about storytelling and how it relates to branding. And then Ian will talk about sort of the new normal and just as we open up and things start to get back to normal, or whatever the new normal is, some guidelines and tips and thoughts on what that should look like. So we'll jump right in. Okay. So storytelling is the best marketing. We'll start with the big statement, and then I'll back it up with some thoughts and recent research around that. You know, it's our opinion that the brands that tap into our emotions, our opinion and many others, as I'll share with you, brands that tap into our emotions are far more powerful than brands that don't. Connecting with human emotions is an inexact science at best. It's more of an art, and it's the main thrust of marketing. This is accomplished by developing your brand story and connecting to your audience. So we'll talk a lot more about what that means, what that brand story is, and how we can do that. So we'll, you know, whether you're a brand, whether you're an individual artist, in this presentation, we'll have sort of guidelines and a tutorial, brief tutorial on how you can do that for yourself. So I want to talk real quickly about the difference between a product and a brand, and what they each are accomplishing, and kind of the role they serve. You know, a lot of people sort of use these interchangeably. They talk about their product as a brand. And so I just want to sort of define each one. So when we think about a product, it solves a very specific consumer problem. There's a rational connection. It's something that's consumed. It's built into a routine. And it could be a legally protected design or patented design. When we're talking about brands, which is the focus of today, you know, that first point is really the crux of it. It beats down a consumer enemy. So when we look at the brands that we all love, whether it be Starbucks or Disney or Apple, you know, they all are positioned themselves very well against an enemy, so to speak. So with Apple, you know, it's one of our marketers' favorite case studies to always look at. But with Apple, they talk about how technology basically can be frustrating for people and having access to it. So, you know, Apple's enemy is that frustration. So they want to make technology accessible to everyone. So that's a big goal there. Is where at Starbucks, yes, they serve a delicious latte, but really their enemy is the hectic life. You know, Starbucks is a reprieve from that hectic life. It's a break. It's something you can count on. It's a feeling in the store. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about a consumer enemy. So, you know, whether it's Apple and frustration of technology, whether it's Starbucks and a hectic life, you know, whether it's Disney, their enemy is growing up. You know, that finding that child within, whether you're an adult or for obviously for the children. So you want to find that emotional connection, and it really does elevate the brand and increase the brand equity. So a brand is something you experience, and it becomes a favorite ritual. You know, like I was just speaking about, Starbucks is a huge part of people's daily ritual in normal circumstances. And then it's a managed and protected reputation. So just wanted to define and differentiate between how we're defining product and brand. So I'm going to point to some recent research and some articles, and we'll be sharing this, I think, after with the group, so you can read up on this for further reading. But, you know, the first one here, Forbes has dubbed storytelling the new strategic imperative of business. Seth Godin, for those of you that are familiar, he wrote a number of acclaimed best-selling books. He has a consultancy. He worked in some tech unicorns. He was at Yahoo for quite a while, and a couple others as a consultant. But his recent quote was, "Marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories that you tell." Fast Company. Storytelling and marketing are the new power couple. There is no better way to connect, engage, and reach your customers, period. Forbes. A business with a remarkable story can win over its audience and raise the perceived value of its brand. Medium. In fact, science has finally confirmed what we've long known to be true. We're hardwired for stories. They lead to better understanding, trust, comprehension, receptivity, and more. So the reason I'm pointing this out was just, you know, this is basically, there's this evolving trend. You know, it's been happening for the past few years, and it's really, you're seeing it in all these articles from these great publications. You're seeing it in research, but it's really about the humanization of the brand. You know, we are connecting with brands differently than we ever have. You know, I've been obsessed with brands since I can remember, and that's why I do what I do. But I always wondered, even you know, as I was growing up, like why certain brands with similar products, you know, why one kind of succeeds and thrives when another one doesn't. And I think that really comes back to a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So these were interesting because, you know, we talk about brand stories, and I think all of us understand, like Apple makes sense, Starbucks, Disney, you know, even Facebook, their enemy is fear of losing touch, or FedEx, you know, hate to wait for stuff. So, but the fascinating one for me is how even brand stories are, you look at the snack foods. So a lot of these new healthier snack foods, you know, when I think back as a kid to, you know, Ritz Cracker or Cheez-It or something, you'd never see, there's no like brand story, you know, and they weren't even thinking about it at that time. But I've been in branding and marketing for a little over 20 years, and it's so fascinating to me to see how it's evolved. And I thought these are probably interesting examples from your standpoint, but the reason they're here is because the brand stories are even making their way into these, you know, categories they never would have before. So whether it's Capellas, I always say that name wrong, but everything's made out of chickpeas, but they have this great brand story about peas, love, and giving back. And then there's also this chocolate example. But the point of bringing these up is brand stories are essential, whether you're a snack food, whether you're a tech brand, whether you're an artist, it doesn't matter. You know, people want these stories, and they want to understand why you exist. And we'll get into some of those questions and things later. But I just thought these were interesting. And also two more of my favorites, especially this Magic Spoon on the right. So Magic Spoon, you can see there is a cereal brand. And, you know, I, like many people, have given up cereal for a while. You know, I'm getting older, trying to stay fit. The metabolism's not quite what it used to be, and just didn't want all the sugar and stuff. So I stumbled upon, there's this huge trend of these high protein, healthier cereals. And, I just thought they did a great job with connecting to, like, their story is hold on to the dream. You can see in that purple graphic is on all of their packaging. It's on their website. The two guys who founded it talk about the same experience I've had, where I love cereal. Like, I literally didn't have it for over a decade or two, for the reasons I mentioned. And so they really go back into this, like, look, we love cereal as a kid. You can have it again as an adult. Hold on to the dream. And then they talk about sort of the story and obviously how it's healthier. You can read, maybe you can't, it's really small, but remember the carefree days of childhood when you didn't feel guilty about eating mountains of cereal with questionable nutrition. Well, now you can have your cereal and eat it too. We re-engineered that same great taste with grown-up ingredients. So it's just about how they build out the story. It's not just like, hey, here's a healthy cereal. They dig into why they were created. They dig into why they exist. They dig into what they believe in. Hold on to the dream. That little graphic there comes in the email marketing campaign. It's actually spinning at the bottom. So as you scroll down in all their campaigns, they really call out, like, it's not just about a healthy cereal. It's about, like, the dream of being able to eat cereal again. So that, and then these crackers, from the ground up. There was this, again, it's so interesting to see the lengths that these smart, young new brands are doing to break through, and they're really from the ground up. So even their name, their website plug, it's not just, look, we're a healthier version of a Cheez-It. We're from the ground up. This is what we believe in, and this is how it comes to life. So, they really go on, they take a big part of their package on the back to talk about the story and what's inside. So, yeah, just a couple interesting examples from the packaged goods space, especially in the snack world. It's just been fascinating to see, and really exciting for me as a brand geek to see how all of this is really coming to the surface more, and these brands are just getting really smart. We're almost in what they would call like a marketing 3.0 in that sense. So these are just some examples. This one, I wanted to read this. So I thought this was a great quote that really summed it all up. The role of a brand is to create a unique, ownable, and motivating brand idea that transforms the brand's purpose-driven DNA into a brand reputation that connects quickly and lasts in the minds and heart of the consumer, generating a tight bond, power, and profit beyond what the product alone could achieve. So again, that talks to how are we creating that emotional connection? How are we engaging with our consumers? How are we connecting with them? As part of that. So, and that all, like, even purpose-driven could be to charitable cause. A lot of brands use a charitable cause and they have that purpose-driven DNA. And in the case of those delicious little cheddar crackers, their purpose is that they want natural food that are from the ground, and they don't want, unnatural colors or ingredients. So, that's kind of a thing that we want to keep emphasizing and reinforcing is, finding your purpose and finding why you exist, and finding and really bringing that to the surface. So again, just want to reiterate, a brand, it beats down the enemy. You have to think about, and I don't even care, we do work with such a wide range of clients, but even if you're a local electrical group or something, your enemy could be, unprofessional service providers, unclear pricing. That's the type of way we want to think about this. Is there's always an enemy, and there's a way that you can differentiate yourself and position yourself, so you're fighting that enemy, whatever it may be. Sorry, there's a comment there. So, this one really talks about how we go through brands as a consumer and what the phase and how we react and respond to them. So when we think about this, there's many brands that we're sort of indifferent to, and we just, you may consume them. Then there's brands that we like, and then there's brands that we love, and then there's brands that are called beloved brands. So, as you can see, as you move down this curve, the brands at the end, the beloved brands, you know, those are the ones that have really defined their brand very well, their positioning very well. They've defined their identity very well. They've identified a clear enemy. You know, we talked about Starbucks, we talked about Apple, but if you think of, and we talked about Disney actually there, you know, Nike, the enemy is losing, frankly. And they believe they've done a nice job recently of refining their message that we're all athletes. Any one of us is an athlete. And it doesn't matter if you're in the Olympics or if you're running down your street and trying to do a 5K. It doesn't matter. We're all athletes, and you know, we may have different goals. But so, you know, this is just to help kind of show, and I'm sure you all can feel this, but your connection to these brands, I would imagine for most of you, as you go down from indifferent to beloved, that connection strengthens and gets deeper. You know, there's brands like a Burger King or a Dell on the top that maybe you just got a good price on some computers, or your work bought a bunch of them or something, but you know, it wasn't really a connection. It was sort of something you used, all the way down as we go through, you know, Wendy's, Walmart to Tide. And then you kind of turn the corner and you can see, you know, brands like a Harley Davidson, you know, they have a very passionate user group. It's demonstrated by the fact that they do a lot more business and even licensing several times over than they do in selling their product. So, I mean, that's really the epitome. When you can get so much brand love that you're just your name, the Harley Davidson name, and the licensing of that on various items is, you know, exponentially larger than your core business. You've created some brand love. And then, yeah, Red Bull and on down the line, you know, In-N-Out, they've done a fantastic job of creating that passionate fan, and people are sharing pictures on Instagram because of it, you know, whenever they get near one. So, yeah, just some examples here of brands that, as you move down the scale, and I think we can all identify with, you know, the ones kind of in the bottom right here, of ones that, you know, we connect with, we admire. You know, their positioning is very well thought out and well executed. You know, another brand not on here, but when we talk about enemies like Staples, I think, you know, they did a good job with that easy button. You know, the whole idea is business is complicated. You know, let us provide the easy button and make at least, you know, getting the supplies and things you need easy. So their enemy in that case would be complicated business. So when we look, you know, when Ian and I sit down with the brand, either if it's a new brand that's looking to launch as a startup, or it's a brand that just wants to find new growth for itself and reposition or refine its positioning and create it. You know, it's interesting. We sit down with brands, you know, some of them, they kind of see this as the fluffy stuff. And so, oh, we don't need all that branding. Let's just jump into a marketing plan. And, you know, frankly, I think, you know, we both strongly believe that, you know, identifying and developing the positioning, your character, your essence, your tone, your messaging that differentiates you and connects with your target audience is the most important foundational thing you can do. So, you know, that's where you start. All the marketing plan development and how you reach the customers and generate leads and all that really should come after you have a well-defined brand story and brand positioning created. So this is just a sample to give some examples of, you know, what we do and what we look for. And the first part of the process is usually just an interactive interview with some of the stakeholders and founders. And these are a small collection, not the entire list, but kind of a truncated list of the questions that we would ask if we sat down with you. And the next slide, we'll talk about personal stories. So that we'll get into for everybody from an artist, you know, on the stage, or someone who's just looking to define themselves and go out on interviews here. So this page in particular is about brands, so I'll speak to that. So, you know, what do you do? For whom and how? Why do you exist? What makes you different? So the why you exist one is really the tricky one, because usually it's a very straightforward answer of, you know, we exist to make reams of paper or whatever it is. But there's always a deeper meaning, and that's the one that you really got to dig into to get the story. And that's usually kind of the impetus, the genesis of it is there was a reason why you're doing what you're doing, and it's more exciting than the end game of you providing something to the market. You got into something because you were passionate about it, you were really good at it. There's always a deeper reason. And so that's the key, is the why do you exist? It's not just the surface, you know, we exist to sell paper clips or something, but there's a bigger picture meaning there. And that's a key to dig into. And then talking even about core values. And this helps build out sort of the messaging and the positioning, but you know, what as a brand do you believe in? You know, we go back and look at some of those examples. You know, core values for that snack brand would be they believe in all natural ingredients. They believe in, you know, transparent labeling. They believe in, you know, you should be able to eat fun snacks that taste good but are also good for you. So that's another part of the process where you lay out those values, and that feeds into what does the company stand for? You know, what does it believe in? So those are pretty related, but every company, you know, again, if you're a service offering or you're a product, you know, a lot of people think, oh, I have this simple thing and this is just what I do. And I think, you know, one takeaway I'd like you all to have is that, you know, there's a reason that all of you do what you do, and there's a deeper meaning to it, and there's something that can be unearthed, so to speak, in that. And then tone, you know, tone's an interesting one. You know, if we look at that example earlier, Magic Spoon, the cereal company, they have a really fun, playful tone where they, you know, they have fun. They make me feel like I can be an adult kid again. You know, they have these great caricatures. Actually reminded me, I have my Beatles mug. It reminded me of some of that artwork on the mug here. So Magic Spoon has kind of a similar artwork style there. But so, you know, how do you want to talk? What's the tone? You know, it can be serious too. You know, if you're a legal services company, you know, you want to be supportive, you want to show expertise, you want to be measured, you know, so there's all ends of the spectrum, and it's just really aligning what you want to do. You know, there was a training company who did, you know, student athlete development. So you want to be supportive, you want to, you know, there's all these different types of tones, and it is important because whoever you're working with on your social channels or the copy on your website, you want it all to sort of have a similar tone, and you want to speak to your audience in a consistent way, so they know what to expect from you, and what they see on your Facebook page versus your LinkedIn versus your website versus your email marketing, or on just a newspaper ad. It all fits together and ties together with similar type of tone, similar messaging, and we aren't getting into identity, but you know, similar fonts and colors and things like that too, because consistency is really important. So yeah, this is sort of a super truncated version of getting the brand story exercise for a company, and what we would do and dig into in the first part of that process. But in the next one now, as we look to individuals, so how do you build your personal brand pitch? And I'll actually run through a quick example, you know, that just for Ian and I in that marketing agency. Again, a very simplified version here for the purposes of time, but how do you define yourself? You know, what's the primary benefit you provide? What's a reason to believe that benefit? And then the result your target can expect, excuse me. So this is useful for, again, like I said, anybody, if you're, you know, God forbid, one of the people that's been laid off during this, you know, you have to develop your personal pitch as you're talking to recruiters or going out in job interviews. If you're an artist trying to get a role in a new production, it doesn't matter. Everyone needs a pitch. I have a pitch. You know, we all need our own personal brand pitch. And it is important. So we'll go to the next slide, and sort of this, again, this is a super simple example of like our version of it, but you know, how do you define yourself? So, you know, we're brand strategists and marketing consultants. The primary benefit we provide is improved brand equity and lead generation. How can you believe this? Well, we have a successful track record of finding growth for companies or helping them launch successfully. And then what's the result your target can expect? This is enhanced positioning and messaging that results in improved engagement with your audience and a far more effective and efficient marketing plan. So that was our example for individuals. You know, everyone has a story. Everyone has their own personal brand that they need to nurture and develop. And this is, again, just one really sort of maybe overly simplified example, but hopefully it helps you start to think about that for yourself and for your business. And with that, I think Ian, it's we're going to the next section.
Thank you, Nick. That was great. And I actually, I wanted to kind of go back to what you were talking about and just address what Jerry had asked about a tech company that's servicing another B2B company, a professional services company. And the answer is that yes, this storytelling can apply to any type of company, brand, an individual. So for example, we have a client that's in a B2B business, but they've really been able to carve out their storytelling by focusing on the fact that they're a family company. And they have this whole kind of internal branding that really is for the benefit of their clients. And that's it. You know, they're a family company, they care, they try their best, they, you know, they show their personality on social media. They're not just promoting their service or their product all the time. So the short answer to that is sure, as a tech business or any other B2B business, all of this applies. If you just kind of follow what Nick had addressed in terms of, you know, what you stand for, the common enemy, you know, the solution that you're providing, the benefit for your customers. And if you do that with consistency and with authenticity, you know, even a B2B company can do that. So we've seen it in some, you know, in some of the most exciting consumer industries. You know, for example, Miami New Drama does a fantastic job of that. And we've even seen it in some of the more, let's say, less exciting creative industries like accounting. You know, we also actually have an accounting client that does a very good job of their storytelling as well. So we can address more of that later. Let me here change to sharing my screen. 1 second. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Are we good? Nick?
Yeah. Can you go to the view and then make it just the full, maybe?
Yeah, let me, sorry guys, thought I had that ready. I think this is the way to go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, you know, now that we've done, you know, this kind of broad view of storytelling and branding and just kind of going over what it is and how to implement it. The fact is, you know, right now we're facing, you know, unprecedented, unusual times, as everyone is saying. And, you know, the big question is getting back to business and branding, you know, how, when, and what's the new normal. So, you know, in a lot of cases, I guess it's been across the board where you've had some companies, brands, individuals, et cetera, you know, have to stop altogether. And, you know, they kind of have had no choice but to, you know, completely shut down their operation, their service, or stop distributing their products. In other cases, you know, you have people who, or businesses and brands that have, you know, been able to adjust. You know, Miami New Drama is a good example of that. So, you know, the point is that whether you've kind of shut down completely or you're in this kind of adjustment mode, you know, God willing, you know, we're going to get to, you know, kind of back to this new normal where, you know, we can start communicating again and not, you know, have to have everything be about, you know, COVID-19 pandemic, but it's something that we will ease into. So what I want to go over first here on the new normal is, what are brands doing right now? So there was a survey done of marketing professionals and some business owners, and the stats are here. 60% have cited that their precautions are being taken, and they're telling their followers, their customers, whether it's by email, social media, or whatever, that they're taking precautions for the situation right now. 51% cited that they've adjusted their creative messages, and I think that adjustment is actually really important. I know that when this all kind of started coming about, and we kind of paused and took a look with each one of our clients to say, okay, our business as usual with, let's say, some really creative messages and fun, light things, let's stop and look at that, because we don't want to be callous. We don't want to be tone deaf. So that's what that adjustment to the creative messages is about. 45% offered new or different options. So meaning, hey, we're acknowledging, we're adjusting, look, we can do this for you now instead, or, I'm available for this now instead of that. 33% have replaced their hard sale messages with just, empathy, so I'll give an example. It was actually, we were doing a deal with, on behalf of a client. There was, it was going to be a survey project, a really big national survey project with a tech company. We were so close to the sale, or for, to utilize them as a vendor. And, they effectively, they understood our position. We kind of had to stop, and they were very good about showing their empathy and their follow-up, and stopped the hard sale essentially, because they knew, what the situation was, or were very well aware and adjusted to it. 31% have reduced their print ads. 30% have increased their brand awareness. 25% reduced their digital ads. 21% have stopped all ads. 17% have cut back their outdoor media. 12% other, 10% did not make any changes at all. So the reason I'm telling you that is just to kind of show you what a lot of the big brands and advertisers are doing right now, and how they're adjusting their branding and their messaging. So as I was saying, brands will ultimately come back to branding. And kind of this new normal where it's okay, back to business, we need to sell and to communicate. So this will happen, I think, just depends where you are. If you take Florida, for example, a lot of the other counties and cities are reopening and, taking, a different route than, let's say, South Florida, because we just have a different situation going on here. So the operations, the branding will have to follow whatever the operational priority is, and that can vary by geography. So that is something to take into consideration. If if you're a local brand with a local audience, you can kind of look at your situation there as a whole and say, okay, I'll adjust like this. If you're a brand that has a regional, statewide or national audience, then you have to consider that you can't put everyone in the same bucket. You have to adjust your messaging that way. So that's really important, is to just pay attention to that. But we will all get back to business as usual in the new normal. So messaging was important before, and branding is obviously very important when it comes to marketing. But your messages now will be more important than ever. It's a matter of again, showing empathy, being sensitive to the situation as a whole. But if we have 3 phases here that we can look at. So phase 1 of your return to branding and communicating, I think people are just going to want to see, okay, we're here, we can, offer you our product, service, or, I'm available, if you're an artist. My wife is an actress. She has concerns about auditions and getting back to that. So it applies that way in how you communicate. So, the first step is we're open and we're taking precautions. I'm aware of social distancing, or we're doing this to, make sure our product is safe, and that sort of consideration. So the second phase will be about COVID-19 safety and compliant as it relates to the product or service. So building on that, it's okay. We've retrained our employees, and we're following this protocol. I know, for actual physical products, there's always a concern. So, whether you're an online business and you have to let people know about contactless delivery and, how you're going to handle things. I know with a lot of professional service firms such as ourselves, we've replaced, in-person meetings with obviously Zoom meetings like this. So, that's the second phase. The third phase should focus on the value added benefits and special deals and promotions as it relates to, kind of rekindling your marketing. So the third phase is where you can really kind of get back to, really talking about the benefits of your product and talking about special deals, and, something that's, grand reopening or something like that. So right now, 44% of consumers want to hear about service product adjustments and updates. So again, that's, your local restaurant saying, hey, we're closed, but we're available for pickup or delivery. Miami New Drama, for example, has done a fantastic job with, now providing the series of webinars that they're doing. So again, these are product adjustments and updates. So just letting people know, hey, we're still here. We didn't close down. 24% want to know just about the general status. 16% want to know about the safety protocols, again, the compliance measures, the handling of the products or services. And 8% of consumers are looking for deals and discounts. So that's, maybe I'm not getting the optimal service or timely delivery of my product or in a way that, is normal. So I'm looking for a deal. All right. So with your branding and storytelling, here's some practical tips to, actually getting back to communicating on a consistent basis. So these are the steps to revitalize your brand post-pandemic, and it can even be now. So first is refocusing, and that is setting new goals while acknowledging that, maybe your staff has changed or your operation has changed, but you have to first look at, okay, what's happening internally that we have to acknowledge, and okay, based on that now, what are the new goals? And these could be operational goals. You can set financial goals from that, and any other objectives that, are new as a result of this new situation. Second is to evolve your brand experience, and that is to invest in innovation and renovation, marketing, and brand trust. So here, again, I like using Miami New Drama as an example, but they're evolving their brand experience. They've have been known for producing, amazing theater at the Colony, and they've had a focus on education, and they've now kept that and have evolved the brand experience now into this digital format. So that's a great example. And you'll see it right here. So this is very great example of Miami New Drama, announcing another one of their MasterMiND series. Another one that I really like was when Anheuser-Busch basically announced that they were going to, essentially repurpose the alcohol that they can create and, realign their supply chain to create hand sanitizer. And they're doing a great job of showing that they're, here to support and to, help their employees and the community as a whole. So the next steps are, redefine your measurable goals. So, now that you've, if you take a look and you say, okay, well, this is what, we want to achieve now, you have to, figure out how you're going to measure that. So are you going to get the best results in the right way to meet your new goals? And then rebuild, maintain trust. So always focus on your customers and audience and their needs for enduring, profitable growth. Realign your operation. So, here you want to match and satisfy rearranged customer needs, habits, and new customer problems. So you want to essentially just take a look at, what are, now you're looking at externally, what are my customers experiencing that I have to be attentive to so that I'm not, again, insensitive or overlooking something that could affect them. So, as with all branding, you want your ultimate focus to be on your customers. Let me see here. So, one second. So when the economy starts up post-coronavirus, a lot of brands will need to be re-energized. So, you can plan now for this post-coronavirus revitalization. But, it's natural to kind of only focus on the near term. But if you want to survive and you want to succeed, you have to combine your near-term goals with longevity. So, whether it's, let's say, a catering company that has had to adjust from, doing events, let's say now they're doing individual meal kits and, delivering that to businesses or customers, that's something that they can bake into their long-term strategy, even if they have to phase it out, but it could be a longer term solution for, something that they've done now to adjust for now. So, just when you get back to, branding and, really trying to communicate with your audience, just remember to, be sensitive to their needs, to, the climate in your industry. There might even be something that's specific to your industry that may not be affecting others. So it's just important to, take a look at all of that and align that to your messaging. So I actually, I wanted to know if anyone had any questions, if we can get into a little bit of, Q&A, if anybody wanted to post or ask some questions.
A quick question, possibly.
Please.
Because you're just saying realigning to customer needs and everything. And I think maybe for a new business or an artist starting out or something, they're not sure maybe where to look for what the customer needs or wants or what their problem is. And so what are some strategies or ideas? Is it a survey that you do to find this
I was
out?
going to say, I think with, with any communication, authenticity is really important. So I think reaching out to your customers like that, even if it's with a short survey, it could be even, an email, mini email marketing campaign where, you let them know that you're trying to accommodate, maybe some of their new needs or questions or problems. I do think a survey would be best for that.
Okay. I had some general thoughts on the whole presentation, but if you have more to say on this part, we can move on. I don't see any questions at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Jerry's question too. You know, whether the B2B, and he brings up a good point. You know, I focused a lot on B2C examples in the first part about just because some of those are, I think, people are more familiar with those brands, but yeah, storytelling and branding is sometimes even more important in B2B situations. You know, to Ian's point, we have a bunch of B2B clients, you know, whether it's finance, automotive industry, even cybersecurity, where their service is positioned to other businesses. And, you know, again, it just goes back to how do they differentiate themselves from their competitors in that field, and their messaging and how they look, to, you know, how do they kind of find their own unique part of that space.
Right. And that's I mean, it's kind of an old saying, but it's, you know, focusing on benefits over features. You know, so especially in tech, you know, that was Apple's big thing. You know, Steve Jobs basically walked onto the stage to introduce the iPod by saying, imagine, I mean, I'm kind of butchering the quote, but it was basically, you know, 1,000 songs in your pocket. You know, not, you know, the sound quality and, you know, all these other little technical details, but that goes back to what Nick said about, you know, why everyone uses Apple as a great example of branding, because it just, you know, they do a fantastic job of it. And that's kind of one of the classic examples. So, you know, focusing on, you know, the functional benefits, emotional benefits of your product or service for clients, especially in, you know, tech or B2B, is how you can craft your story, you know, and not just, you know, kind of a focus on me, but more on them.
So Jim has a question. How do I brand myself? It seems more like individual branding. How do I brand myself when I don't see myself as others see me? I have a rather hard look, but my natural personality is much more sensitive emotionally. Also, what sorts of special deals can I offer as an artist, and what would be the best way for me to get that message out there affordably?
I'll start on this one, Nick. So as an artist, I mean, sure, you know, there's no discount or deal that, you know, I think you really want to offer. I mean, especially as an individual artist, right? Like, let's say, you know, Miami New Drama could have a promo on their tickets, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about as an individual artist. I think, you know, perhaps not a deal or promotion, but you know, it could be if you're trying to work on a particular project or something, it could be, you know, your, you know, flexibility to adjust to the current situation, or, you know, something that relates to you personally. And then as far as, you know, you identify yourself one way, but I guess the question is, you think you're perceived in a different way? Is that, I guess,
That seems to be.
yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, you know, are you putting yourself out there in a way that, you know, allows people to see, you know, you being your authentic self, you know,
Right.
whether that's, you know, in person or, you know, on social media. You know, some people, I mean, I think the belief is, you know, oh, everyone's, you know, putting themselves out there on social media, but not everybody is or that comfortable putting, you know, everything out there. So I think it's a matter of, you know, maybe being consistent with, you know, how you communicate with your audience. And as an artist, you know, and me personally knowing other artists, that, you know, social media is probably, you know, the best way to do that. And to just be yourself and put your content and your creativity out there.
I think that I have a few comments along the way that kind of ties into this, I think. And that's finding what's different about you to in your brand or whatever. And that kind of ties into this a little bit of that can be an asset as an artist, that you look or perceived one way on the surface, but when you dig deeper, you are more sensitive, emotional, more empathetic than maybe initially perceived upon looking at. And so that can be intriguing to directors and to just viewers in general, like somebody who doesn't look what you know, you're hiding something, but it's something good. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and
No,
and that also tying into that different aspect, there was a thought that I had, that a lot of times I see artists, writers, like what I'm writing about is not, oh, it's this other person is doing that thing, like, so I can't do that thing. And a lot of what has been talked about in a lot of these classes and along the way is that generally, yes, ideas are similar or the same, but there's still one unique aspect or quality to you and to why you want to do that and write that you can find. And it doesn't have to be you are a 180 experience from this other person. It can be I'm just this to that person. I'm just a step to the right to that person, or I'm a step to the right to that idea. That it doesn't have to be completely different, but there is some aspect there that is your it could just be that you're more excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to Jim's question, like, it's you're creating that brand, and to Ian's point, really, in the content you put out. So if you're posting videos, if you're even in the way that you message things, you know, that's where that sensitive and the emotional side and the emotive side, excuse me, and the emotive part of it can come in. But I agree with Jessica. I think that, you know, that could be an interesting point of differentiation, where you sort of, you present a certain image, but then, you know, really there's this whole different aspect. So that, yeah, I think that could be actually a cool differentiator and a very interesting attribute, for sure. In terms of deals, I mean, I'm an artist as a hobby. I'm a painter. So special deals I've done were either deferring payment for things, for people. So if I had a show before, but then it all went online, but there was a couple interested parties. So some of it was just deferring payment on the work. And then some of it was, you know, there was some discounting on some older work, which was part of it. But yeah, it's a little trickier as an individual, especially an actor, you know, what you would do there. But that's on the branding part of it. I think, yeah, it's all the content you create is going to define that brand.
Yep.
Okay, there's another question. As an actor, what's the balance between branding myself for casting directors and branding myself for other brands? I
So,
can start, or you can go ahead.
no, go ahead. If you want to, yeah, go ahead.
I think in some ways you just have to know what that person is looking for. So if it's a brand that you are going in to audition for a commercial or something, you have to know what that brand has had in the past or what they are looking for specifically. And the same thing with casting directors. Like, you just have to know, look at their clientele, look at what shows that they've served as casting directors on. And it might tell you something about them and how you fit into that world.
So I've been on both sides of the advertising side, you know, and doing auditions and interviewing actors for clients at castings, and then, you know, I've kind of advised my wife on the other side and talked to her, like, with her experience. And I mean, the one thing, I'll answer the brand side of it first. You know, advertisers, when they hire, you know, a casting agent, well, they'll have an ad agency. The ad agency might do the casting themselves, or they might hire a casting agency. And basically, the first piece of advice I could give is be yourself. You know, have kind of, be informed and do whatever research you want on the brand. If, you're trying to, uh, you know, uh, kind of follow a certain quality of the brand, just be aware of it. But I would say don't try and morph yourself too much into anything other than a natural version of yourself. And
Yeah.
with any of these ads, they're looking for pieces of a puzzle to put together. And I think it's one of those things where you be authentic and be prepared. And that's the best advice I could give. A lot of times for brands, whether it's, I don't know if when she was talking, this question was referring to like maybe influencing, or was it more of like a straight up, are you auditioning for an advertisement? Because there is a little bit of a difference. As an influencer, you kind of are living that certain lifestyle that a brand will want to pair up with. But if you're an actor auditioning for a commercial, then again, just be aware of the product, be prepared, be yourself, and I think that's the best advice I could give for that.
So influencing and acting. So being.
It was influencing and acting. Okay. Yeah. I know on the influencer side. Actually, I have a cousin who works for an influencer management company in New York, and I've actually had a lot of discussions with him about it. It basically, again, it comes down to, they want to match up a lifestyle with the brand. And at the end of the day, it's okay, one, your followers and your audience, but then, if you're authentically you and you're, kind of pairing up and have a cohesiveness with this brand, then it works. I believe in authenticity in everything, so especially if you want to maintain consistency and kind of carve out a personal brand for yourself, the way to do it is to be consistent over the long term.
I like that we're stressing this authenticity thing, because it's not just a thing, the concept. Because when you were talking about emotional connection in storytelling, I do feel, especially lately, there has been a few missteps by some major brands of maybe too quickly switching to this feel-good narrative about it's okay, just buy a Toyota or something like that. I'm not calling out Toyota specifically, but that's what popped in my head.
Sure.
So it's good to stress that the messaging can land flat, or your social media account can land very flat if it looks like it's put on.
Yeah. I think just, empathy and being aware of, not just, your situation, industry, role as an actor, whatever, or, and then others. So
we have a couple more questions. I do want to start with this one because I think I have a thought on this as well. Chris Lurie says, how do you brand yourself as a writer when you have little to no professional experience? And I'll start. Yeah. And I've again heard that quite a bit. And I know starting out, it's very difficult. You don't have the 20 years of experience that has the proof of what you can bring to the table. I actually was writing things down as we went through how to brand yourself, or branding, and it was how do you define yourself, what is your primary benefit, reasons you provide that, and results your target can expect. And if you're a new business or new to the professional world, those last two questions can get a little harder to answer, because you may think, oh, I only was in college and did this, or I just did a website for my friend. Like, that's not, I just did this for this person that I know. Like, it's not. So you have to dig beyond that, and it may authentically overinflate your experience.
Well,
is
Yeah.
what I feel, because I get stuck in that. Well, I just did that. Like I didn't create this. I just made this grant that happened that helped make it happen or something. So
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say, and some of it, it doesn't have to be like, I was talking about our literal results experience, but some of it could just be what are different personality characteristics you have that make you good at something. You're a good writer, or, whatever the example would be, for the grants specifically. But yeah, to this question, a lot of it is about, closing your eyes, imagining where you would be in 5 years or so if everything worked out the way you wanted it, what you're doing, what's happening, what types of work are you creating. And then, yeah, the last part would be just talking about, what characteristics that you have, or even through personal experiences. It doesn't have to be like hard, tangible results necessarily, but it could just be a reason that you are good at something, or what you do, and why.
Yeah, and I kind of want to tackle this from a point of view that can apply to anyone just starting out in anything really. And and whether you're like young and in college, out of college, just starting out, or you're my age and you're starting a new profession, the advice for me is the same, or the guidance is the same, and that is do what you do and put it out there. And things don't happen overnight, as much as we want them to. Some industries are really tough to break into, and whether you're a writer or actor, I think putting yourself out there, getting yourself as close to your industry as possible, pursuing internships, finding anything that's related to your industry where you can surround yourself with the people who, let's say, have made it and are doing things. Get as close as possible, be yourself, and put your work out there. And you'll see that over time, you'll start building your network. You'll hopefully, make introductions, meet new people, and grow your network that way. So it's kind of to me, it's a little bit of that's a networking branding question. And you want to be around the people who are also doing what you're doing, because different people succeed at different times, and sometimes you can carry along a friend if, hey, I met this guy and he's doing a writer workshop, he's this big TV writer in Hollywood, I don't know, whatever. So that's kind of it, is find the little things in your industry, I think, where you can plug yourself in, and keep writing, keep putting it out there, and try and meet as many people as you can.
That's great. Yeah, we have one more question here from Darlene, and then we'll close things out. We are a group of writers with a long history in Miami Beach, collectively contributing to a book project's diversity. Our tone is that we offer truthful stories that reveal and share the experiences that people think and never say, know and never tell. How do we grow into a brand that women relate to? Our first book is now available, Miami Off the Page. So, can you speak to that?
Sure. Nick, you want to?
Yeah, how do we grow to a brand that women relate to? I think this is also a lot about defining your voice. I'm not sure what are the sort of different communication vehicles you use to sort of start attracting the audience, but I would imagine, certainly through some social pages, and then building up your email list or what other things. But yeah, I think this is growing into a brand that women relate to. We talk a lot in our world about persona development and with our clients. And so I think the first step would really be clearly identifying that persona. What is this woman going through? There's a psychographic side of it and the demographic. So, what is sort of her age range that you're targeting? All the sort of demographic pieces, but even more interestingly, I think, is the psychographic. What is she like going through something? What are her challenges? Trying to get inside of her head. So I think number one would be sort of what we would call developing out the persona. You know, what is that persona of the woman that you want to relate to? I think once you have that defined, it's that then you start to build out your messaging and your voice around that persona that you've established. And it makes it a lot easier actually, because then you know how you should be talking to the person. You can understand what their wants and needs and desires might be.
Right. And to build on that, and then from a practical sense, when you want to execute that, and let's say, you know, you've gone through those exercises to define your voice, your, you know, the persona of your audience, you want to find that audience. And I think then you want to look at, okay, strategically, you know, are there other women's organizations, you know, locally, that we can connect with that fall in line with our beliefs, where you can, you know, reach that audience that you've defined. As Nick said, on, you know, your social pages, you know, obviously you want to grow organically, but, you know, in terms of promotion, if you are actually selling something, you know, there's tools to find, you know, the exact persona that you're looking for through the targeting on a lot of the social channels. So from a practical sense, I think that's how, you know, you would start building the brand. You're going to want to make these connections in the community and find the audience once they're defined, and then stick to, you know, be consistent with your messaging.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Ian and Nick. This has been very informational. And for our first marketing class. And thank you everyone for attending this webinar. It will be posted on our YouTube channel if you ever want to look at it again. And again, the past videos and past classes are there as well. Miami New Drama's YouTube channel. And you can take a look at our next classes on colony.org/mastermind. And the next one coming up is with Dion Figgins. She originated the role of Daisy Parker in our production of A Wonderful World that closed back in March. And she is a delightful human being and a wonderful actress. And she'll be talking about developing a character from scratch on Thursday starting at 11. So you can sign up for that on our website. And we have a few new workshops available on writing and acting that you'll see online as well. So thank you again for coming. So
thank
have a great
you.
day.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.